Tube. All right, streaming is on. I really like the streaming feature, because before I have to save the file and then upload it. So if anything happens, then the file is corrupted and nothing happens on the site. But now it's being streamed, so if my computer is to, it is actually live streamed, but I put it into a anyone with a link only mode, unless I think, okay, yes, this is what I want to release, then I go ahead and make it public. Yep. So it's not exactly live, because of the quote unquote approval process. But otherwise, it's on YouTube already. I mean, right now it's on YouTube, so I don't have to worry about my computer crashing or exploding. Because I'll have everything uploaded up to that moment. All right. So we're gonna take a look at the whole thing about extracting components out of HTML. Um, huh? Well, not exactly. So what I'll do is I'm going to get my own document first. So I'm going to get my own process DOM, and then we'll say, tag here. So we can differentiate between the two versions. So this is mine. And we kind of know that that one is working already. And then we'll go to the other one and take a look at the other one. So go to the other one, and that's okay, because I'm just focusing only on extracting components uh, of an HTML document here. So this is, I know it sounds like it's a little bit out of context for this class, but there's actually an increasing amount of connectivity between mobile apps and HTML documents. I think there's a convergence process, somewhere happening right now, that more and more people are trying to write their quote unquote app using HTML and JavaScript on the client side. Because, right now we still have two main platforms. We have iOS and then we have Android. And they're both kind of changing. So if you are a consultant or a small development company and you want to support an app on both platforms, it takes a lot of work, okay? Because those platforms are also changing on their own, okay? Um, but if you try to make your app look more like a website, and there are ways to package a web type of app into a native app, using Cordova is one, and then there are other products as well. Then you have one single code base using JavaScript. It works on the website. It works on both platforms, so you don't have to maintain one code base for iOS and one code base for Android. The main problem of doing that is not only that they have different architectures in terms of what class to use, and how to do things. Similar but not the same, right? Similar but different. But the two also require two different programming languages. Java is only for Android, and then Swift is only for iOS. So you have to learn and master two different programming languages to support the two platforms. If you have a large company and you have a good team of developers, sure, you can have one team to dedicate to iOS and the other one to Android. But if you're an individual, it's like, how do I do this? So, so that's why I think there's a convergence, and it's really good to understand how to do things from the web or just a browser client side perspective, because I think there are ways to make certain types of app to fit into that framework. If you're writing a 3D game, like some that requires a Unity engine or something like that, then this may not apply. You may not be able to use JavaScript to do the whole thing. Right. So there are two main engines for video games. So I know we're kind of digressing a little bit already. That's okay, because I think it is still related to mobile app programming. So if you look up Unity Mobile, this is Unity, which is one of the game engines. So a game engine is basically the foundation code that allows a game app to communicate with the hardware that supports gaming, especially with 3D rendering and that sort of stuff. So they will provide you with the quote unquote API to utilize multiple things, and they can even simulate some of the physics in a game. So if your game requires the simulation of gravity, because your character can jump, but you want it to be realistic, you can basically just program in and say, okay, this character is now jumping with this vector, and then you don't need your own code to calculate the trajectory of that character. The game engine can do all that. So your code doesn't have to do a single thing until one of the events happen. So it's once again event-driven programming. So you can basically say, okay, when the character lands again, generate this event. When the character collides with other objects, generate an event. Okay, so your code doesn't have to constantly be updating the coordinate of the character, including all the rotation, translation, and all the other math involved. So you just program it's like, okay, when the event happens, I'll deal with it. Okay, so when your character bumps into another character, okay, that generates an event, then you specify the logic to say, okay, what happens now? Okay, do we, are these friendly characters? Do they boost each other's stats, or are they enemies? And one is going to hit the other one and change the health point of the other one. You get to decide, the game-specific logic like that, but you can leave the rendering to the engine. So the other part of a game engine is you import your characters into the game. That takes a lot of work, because I work at the design hub, and we have 3D modelers, 3D designers. So the 3D modelers are the ones who come up with a static model, like a character, okay? So they come up with a rough draft and a 3D model. But you have another team of people who do the rigging. So the rigging are the people who look into the character and try to skeletalize, the character and go like, okay, here's the head, here's the torso, here are the legs, the thigh, the feet, and so on. So they will identify pivot points of all of those, key, pivot points. So now your character is no longer like a clay figure. Now it becomes kind of like a kind of figurine. Remember those mannequin stuff? So it becomes a mannequin, but it's still static, right? You can move the arm like this, you can move the arm like this, to make different poses. But in the game, you want it to be animated, like a running sequence or a dodging sequence or kneeling sequence or whatever, right? So you have animators now to take in the rigging and try to animate it the way you want it. So we have like slow pace walking, fast walking, jogging, running, sprinting, and so on. So the animators will come in and do all that animation, but all of that stuff is imported into a game engine. So all you have to say is, okay, do this, sprinting animation from this point to this point. Unless something happens, unless the main character collides with something, don't bother me. Okay, my code doesn't deal with it. Okay, when it gets to the destination, generate an event. But on the way to the destination, it makes life a lot easier because you only have to specify what happens if the character collides with something, runs out of gas, or whatnot. But you can leave the game engine to handle most of the movements and tracking of stuff. So that's what a game engine does. So my curiosity is, if you do use the Unity game engine, for example, what kind of programming language are you going to use? So for that specific question, let's look up that. So programming Unity for programmer new to Unity. But this is, I want to find it for mobile specifically. So let's see which one is specific to mobile. Mobile development, and we're looking for language. And it's got 2 matches. Nope, that's not the language that I want to look for. All right. Setting up the development environment, Unity remote, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So it doesn't have a quick answer to that. But I know in the PC environment, people use C Sharp to write their Unity apps. Um, Whether that applies to the mobile side, I do not know. Yep. Yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot of money in mobile gaming as well. Um, they can use either. They can use Unreal or Unity, but Unity seems to be the more popular one, at least for mobile. Yeah, for mobile stuff. So I cannot answer that question entirely, like what programming language people use for mobile games. Okay, here's another one. Okay, getting started with Android development, exposing native C, C++, or Java code to scripts. Okay. So right here it says use plugin to call Android functions written in C, C++ directly from C# scripts. Java functions can be called indirectly. So they have basically translations from other languages to utilize the Android functions. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot to. Oh, there's a lot to gaming, especially when you look into those. Hmm? Yep. Well, Apple TV is one of the platforms. So all of these are individual platforms. So Mac OS is for the desktop, what you have here. Apple TV apparently is different from iOS or Mac OS, so it has its own platform. And then WebGL is for GL, which is a graphics library that people use, and WebGL from the name, I think it implies that you can run it from a browser. And then Android has its own, and then below this is probably like Windows and then Linux. So pretty cool stuff. Okay, but it's way out of the scope of this class. And any type of game development takes pretty much a whole team, because you need all kinds of expertise to get a game going. It takes a long time too. So getting back to where we are talking about. All right, so we got to two programs. Okay, let me hide this one. It's not relevant for this class, nor is this. Those are from my assembly programming classes. And you remember those, right? um, okay, there we go. So we're going to use mousepad to look at the code. So file open. And we'll open my original file first. Okay, this is the one that I had that we knew was working. So the key to this is, the first thing is generic. Okay, the first thing is we use get web view string into a variable in JavaScript, so that we know what is the input. And then we have, there's nothing else to process here. And then we have a function, which is a callback function. It's a callback function because the body element of the HTML document specifies the onload function to be this one. So after the entire document is loaded, then that function is called. So we know the sequence of operations is going to be this first, the rest of the JavaScript code, then this. So which is important. So inside the function called process request, we got a whole bunch of alerts just for debugging purposes, and that seemed to be pretty helpful for us to find out what is going on in the script. But the most important part is from line 10 all the way to, let's say, line 16. Okay, so line 10 is important because it's making a new object called a parser. Okay, that's the name of the variable, but it is a DOM parser. And then on line 12, we are feeding it the HTML text, and we specify this is a HTML document. And then the parser does its own thing to break down the text representation of the HTML document into a structure. So once it breaks it down into a structure, then we have a DOM, which is the same variable name as what we use on line 12. So DOM as a variable is referring to the entire tree hierarchy of things in the document. So normally the DOM is called document, when you load the document, natively. But since this is not the main document, I'm creating a separate object to represent the document that the parser just processed. So I think this step is necessary in your case. Yeah, so have to integrate that into your code first. And once you have that, then you can use all the get elements by whatever, right? You can do it by ID, you can get it by element name, and so on.
But would that affect? Would that be the like? Cause I get the message file not found, and I just
Oh, so you couldn't load the file?
that's the message I was getting.
Okay.
Um, but
Are you referring to the HTML document as an asset, or are you referring to the
I don't know what it's
URL?
referring to. That's just when I
Okay,
fire up the app, I get the
gotcha.
message in the where do I get that? Let me try it now, and I'll tell you when I
Okay.
get it.
Well, we can take a look. So we can look at web one,
I get
and
it. Okay, I get it.
and then we can look into
So
the URL that you want to
I get
use.
it when I fire up the emulator. You know how we have the web viewer?
Mm-hmm.
Inside the web viewer, it says web page at file Android asset process dot not found.
Okay. So the web viewer could not find the asset that is the file. We can
That's
check
what
that.
I how I understood it.
Okay. All right.
I copied it, yeah, exactly as
But
is.
the
I
but the
did
tr-
the same thing.
but the triple slash works only if you use the deployment, the APK deployment method.
That's what I was wondering. So if
Are you
I
using the?
no, I was using emulator, so I don't know how to.
Oh, if you're using. Okay, so okay, I can answer that question. Okay.
Well, I'm sure after we fix that, we'll have the problem that you're talking about now anyway.
No, let's talk about the other problem first. Okay, so if you do not have an Android device to kind of play with, then one of the really nice option if you have a reasonably powerful computer is to install the full version of Android Studio. So it's hmm? Yeah, you can do that. It takes quite a bit of resources, and that's why I do not usually recommend it. But if you do have a lot of resources or enough resources, just go ahead and download and install Android Studio. It's free. It is free. Unlike Apple, who charges $100 a year to get their development tools, Android tools are 100% free. Now you do have to pay, Android, a certain amount when you start to sell your app. So if you put your app onto the App Store and you say Play Store in this case, and you say, okay, it's $5, for each download, then Google gets a cut. Okay. But on the other hand, if you say I'm just playing with this, hey, play all you want, okay? If you're making an app and you say I'm not really quite sure that this is worth any money, I'm going to make it available for free, and you can do it for free too. So you don't have to pay Android or Google in this case any money unless you're selling your app at the Play Store. So that's kind of nice because for a class like this, it's zero cost to us. Okay, so this is what something you might want to consider. It already knows that I'm running Linux, and that's why it said version 3.4 for Linux 64-bit because it can identify my operating system using the browser. But you can tell the size is actually kind of big.
Is
It's
that big?
it's 1 GB.
Oh,
Is 1 GB to download. Once you expand it and install all the updates and the optional components and whatnot, it gets bigger. So if you have enough resources on your computer to run it, it has a lot of really cool features. So I can show you what it looks like in just a little bit. But I want to show you where you can download it and have it installed. In the worst case, you may not have you may not have all the resources. You can just delete it, right? I mean, it's not going to cost you anything other than the time. All right, so let me switch back to my command line here because I want to show you um, how big it is. So I have a tool that can do this. Okay, it's Android Studio, and I want to only limit it to max depth Now this you don't have to copy, okay? This is a Linux thing, so it's not going to do you any good if you are running Windows. Hmm? Um, I just started using it since 2000. So, in 19 years, I just learned how to do most things that I need to do. But we do have classes here too. cisc323 is the first Linux class, and then cisc324 is the intermediate, which is the second of those of the series. So if you want to kind of learn how to do command line stuff in Linux and how to install Linux and how to use Linux in general, those are good classes to take.
Now, is that different from using DOS?
It's different, yes. Idea is the same. It is. You will be using mostly the command line interface, but you're correct that they are different. So you have to combine these two, so you can
Wow.
see that you got 5.4 plus 1.7, so it's a little more than 7 gigabytes. Just to get all the tools and whatnot, because it's including a lot of stuff too. It's including the emulator. It's including all the libraries. Depending on how many Android versions you want to support, that can also change. Um, on a modern computer, like a computer that that you might purchase within a year or so, this is nothing, right? You have like a 5 terabyte hard drive.
This is a small solid state.
Yeah,
Like 124 or something.
yeah. So if you have a recent computer, especially a desktop, they all come with what 5 terabyte hard drives now. This is like
Drop the bucket.
insignificant. Yeah, you can't even find out that this is installed. It also takes up some RAM or resources to run it. But I want to show you why I mentioned this. Okay, so we go to Android Studio, and this is not what you need to do if you do it in Windows. If you do it in Windows, you just get an icon and you can click on, right? But since I'm using Linux, this is all kind of more command line based, a little bit less intuitive. But once you get it started, it's all GUI based. So let me show you what the GUI looks like. So this is the GUI. And let me resize it. It gives you all the tips. Every single time you start it up, you can disable it. But it also gives. It's really cool. The tips are usually pretty cool. It shows you how to use the tool. The GUI editor. And if you use this GUI for a while, you get spoiled. In other words, it has all kinds of nice, bells and whistles and whatnot, to help you change the name of a variable, refactor your code, turn something into a subroutine. It will do all of that stuff for you. And once you identify what thing you want to do, really powerful tool for Java development. But that's not why I'm mentioning this. So let me close that, and we'll focus on this tiny little icon here. So that tiny icon looks like a little mobile device, with a little green Android, under that. That's how we start an emulator. This starts what we call the AV, Android Virtual Machine (AVM) um, manager, and that's the one.
It's a fancy name for it.
So it's the AVDM. Okay, AVD is an Android
Size on
Virtual
disk,
Device.
an additional 8.4 gigs.
Hmm?
It's an additional 8.4 gigs.
Size on disk. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, but you're having a virtual machine that is actually doing all the same stuff that a normal Pixel 2 is going to do.
It's probably better than my Kindle. But
You can probably get a Kindle too. So in other words, you can actually add additional devices. You can create a virtual device, and I think it only has the ones for from Android. When you look at actual devices, but you can try to get the specs from your
there's a
Fire.
product section.
Okay. Yeah, but these are all Android products too. But you can basically look at the resources on your
Yeah.
Fire, Kindle Fire, and then just hand edit the profile of hardware to make it. But okay, so let me show you what is really cool about this. Okay, so I'm not going to create a new device, because that requires a lot of stuff to download and whatnot. By the way, these virtual devices, they all have a Play Store included, and all the usual Google tools like the browser, and whatnot. So the action here, this is a little green arrow that says it'll play. So now we are starting the virtual device.
Pardon me. I'm sorry.
That's okay. We understand. Besides, you're still awake right now.
Let's see how much sleep you have.
And it's supposed to be on. Is it on right now? Maybe not. Maybe I turned it off last time. Yep, there we go. So now it's on, and it behaves exactly like a Pixel 2. So whatever Pixel you choose to use, it has the same resources as a real Pixel. The amount of RAM, the operating system. This one is running Android 9, which is Pi, which is the latest version. The latest version of Android is already quote unquote installed here. Now, getting back to why are we doing this? So let's go ahead and minimize everything else. We don't really need this to be running here, or at least we don't need it to be visible. So we'll try to hide it and say, can we minimize? Yeah, we can minimize. All right, there we go. And can we minimize this one? New. All right, but we can move it out of the way. Oops, not the other workspace. And then we get back to the browser. Uh-oh, I think I just messed up my... Where's my browser?
Yawning somewhere, maybe.
It's here. But now I need to move that window back here. Where did I put it? Ah. Okay, where is my virtual machine? There we go. Okay. So here's our virtual machine, and then we can go use the usual tools to connect to it. So where's my command line? Terminal. There we go. Okay. So now you can go to Android, and then we go to Tools, SDK, and then Platform Tools, like that. And then we can ask, what Android devices do we have? And it shows the emulator as a virtual device. Now, this emulator is different from the ones that is prepackaged with AI Companion, because the one that's prepackaged with AI Companion is really old, has very little resources on it, and so on. This one is modern. This one is up to date, depending on which one you choose. Now, if you choose a Nexus 5, then of course it's going to be an older device with less resources. But if you choose a Pixel 3, hey, it has the same resources as a real Pixel 3, and it runs really fast too. It makes use of the virtualization hardware on your processor, so it's actually pretty efficient when it comes to how much resources it takes to run it. All right, so now that we have all of this stuff, we can now try to run an app. So let me go back here. Let's choose an app that we know is functional. So we go to My Projects and, huh?
What are you trying to say? Mine isn't functional? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yours is not known to be functional. It may be functional, just not known to be, right? So we'll use yours because I was not able to do this on my actual Samsung phone. My Samsung S7 Active would not run this correctly, right? So we'll test this one on the virtual machine and see if it works over there. D&D.
This is yours? This is cool.
Wait, no, hold on. I feel like it'd be useful, man. Too many
Look at that
arguments
purple.
between PS players.
Very
Like,
cool.
oh, when did your spell run out? Oh, shoot, I forgot my ring of protect or my protection spell died 3 rounds ago. That's what I want. You just increment. That was my original idea, right? And then I got angry at recipes, and so I decided to change it.
Recipe becomes therapy.
My wife, so like this summer, I don't have that many classes. They're not offering that many computer classes here
Mm-hmm.
during the summer. There's like 3 classes
Yeah,
So
that's
I was
right.
like, okay, well, I have more time. She's like, I can't wait till you start cooking again. And so she's already put the pressure on me to cook every night because I do like to cook. I'm good at it.
Well, if you
Who's the
want to.
best between you and her?
Oh, me by far.
Good.
She's the baker though.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of like the same between me
My
and my
wife gets
wife.
angry at me every
John,
time I make
you're the
something
cook or
better
the
than her.
baker?
I do all the grilling, frying, pan frying and whatnot, and she does all the.
What my wife is amazing at when it comes to cooking is she's so much faster than me, like half the time or less, and she can make four things at once that all come out at the same time, and I suck at that.
Wow.
Like if you try
But
to
my food
grab the
tastes a
screen
lot
and
better.
slide up.
There we go. It's just much harder, with just using a pointer here. All right, so I think we got it installed.
Yeah, it's kind of in the middle, right next to the
Oh, right
SD card.
there.
It looks like a little red dot.
And you can see how the animation is done correctly. And last time, was it the create screen that
Yeah,
wouldn't
create.
show up? Yep, shows up just fine.
Oh, so you based it off of the sheet that comes in the book?
And then we got the debug message.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, no, no, no. All I want to do is to show that it does work, right? I mean, so yes, so it does work, and this program did not work on my Samsung
you
S7
made
active
starting
phone.
level a slider. That is pretty funny. I like this.
Yep. Okay, so this is how we can, use a fairly modern and realistic device for debugging. Okay, but the idea is, it's best to use the API method because, this way, it is installed on the actual device and it runs,
So this
like an
all
actual
started
game.
this whole conversation about the three slashes and stuff. That's
Yes.
the. But if I did like if I wanted to just try it now with the emulator, the three
Mm-hmm.
slashes isn't the way to go. I have to
Correct.
hit this in order to do
Right,
that.
because the emulator that's built in, that's pre-packaged with AI Starter, has AI Companion installed on it. So the two are they're constantly
Kind of
communicating between.
referencing, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why the path is different. The way you refer to
And
your asset is different.
in platform tools, that gets installed with if I were to. I just downloaded it, but the Android Studio,
Uh huh.
that's in there, right?
Yeah. So when you
Or do I have
install
to set
Android
that separately?
Studio, it would install a separate folder called Android
And SDK platform tools, right?
and SDK platform
Yeah,
tool.
but they're not two separate things. Is what I'm trying to say.
At first, they were. So you can look at the SDK as a part of Android Studio.
All right, let me
So
see
when you
something.
install Android Studio, it takes a long time, by the way.
Well, I'm not
It,
going anywhere.
it not anytime soon, but you are going somewhere.
Might as well, so if at need be, we can. It's available when we talk later.
Okay,
But yeah, so all right, back to your code. Sorry,
that's okay.
that's
All right.
important.
Okay, so this is really good.
I thought I was the star. What are you doing?
Yes. So this is really good. I think it's a good way to debug your app, because it's much more realistic. What you're seeing or where you're running it is really mirroring, what the app is where the app is actually going to run. So everything that works here is going to work on an actual device. That's the idea. Cool. Okay, so now we get back to the apps here, and then we get to
Look at that, done
your app.
installing.
Hmm?
I said, look at that, done installing.
That is quite fast.
Macs like do a weird thing. They don't have this weird. You just basically drag a package over,
Mm-hmm.
so it's just as fast as copying essentially.
Mm.
It's not installing anything
Yeah,
new.
but the thing is, after you install Android Studio, you go to the emulator, then you still have to install the virtual image of
Oh,
the emulator.
okay.
So that takes another like gigabyte or so of downloading. So you may have the fastest computer in the world, but the Wi-Fi here, it can only pump data at a certain rate, right? So now we'll compile your app and find out whether it reports any type of errors.
We haven't added that. What's it called yet? This is.
No, no, it's okay.
Yeah.
I just want to see what kind of error message it comes up with, if any.
If any.
There's always
So
that possibility.
even though the app won't be this way,
Mm-hmm.
look at that.
Unable to compile this project. Okay.
That doesn't happen for me.
Well, but it did compile. It did give me an APK. All right. Well, let's see what happens. What I mean, what possibly can be the worst thing that happens, right?
Nothing, essentially, right?
It can blow up the virtual machine. I mean,
So you are negative, Mr. Pessimist.
I just think of all the possibilities. That's all.
He's more like an optimistic pessimist.
All right. So where is your recipe app?
Down at the bottom, second row from the bottom.
Second row from the bottom. This one. There we go.
So in order to bring up a list, I've tied it to the go button.
Okay, but how do I get to the second screen?
Mine just opens the second screen.
That's because you're connecting to App Inventor the whole time, and when App Inventor switches screen, your app switches screen as well.
Okay, yeah, I haven't built that part yet because I put it on the second screen because I figured this would be a splash screen and I'll put something else
Right.
later.
Okay, well,
But
that's fine.
I haven't
I
put
can.
one on there.
That's an easy one to fix. We just go to the blocks, and then we go to screen one, and when it initializes, we go switch to screen two immediately, or the other screen, which is called ingredients. Okay. So then we go to screen again, and then we use one of the.
It shouldn't be under control.
Okay. Yep. Well, because it depends on whether it's classified under the screen or classified here. Yep, you're right. Open another screen with the screen name of
It's ingredient.
whoops,
But yeah, you put
ingredients.
a dash in front of it.
Yeah, that's the clue of I'm starting a string.
Oh, I just always just type.
So let me check the name. Ingredients. Okay, there we go. All right. So now we can build it again and see if it compiles. Give me that compile error again.
Yeah, maybe it was that. That's why. That's why.
I don't think so.
That's why you have to click here, huh? That's what you're.
Just
Yeah.
touch anywhere on the screen because as soon as the canvas
Did
sees
you
it.
get clearance to put the picture of Beholder on
Hell
there?
no.
Better not be selling that.
I just took a screenshot of the book that I own.
Is that what you did?
Yeah.
That's not fit then. That fit. I haven't found anybody to play right. I just bought the book.
They still have the holders.
No, I know. I just didn't know if you have a cover. I don't remember there being any book.
It's the monster one.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense because I only have the players.
Player's guide. It's like some book.
Okay, so now we're switching to the second screen, and
So if you hit go, you'll bring up the list, and it'll. See, below my list, I have that error file not found. It would be the viewers right below it. It's just nothing in there right now, so it's not working as you said. You see what
oh, it should display something.
Well, no, I put the viewer below it as a debug, like you did in class.
Yep.
And right now, mine underneath there says file not found, but because you did the emulator and everything, there is a file there, but I guess it's just not doing anything.
Okay. Well, then we can do something in your HTML document in the JavaScript part, and we just put a simple alert, right? That we got there.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the idea would be to, right now those ingredients are hard coded in just to test things.
Okay.
The idea would be to populate that ingredients with the macaroni and cheese recipe that you have open on the tab.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, we'll fix one thing at a time. Pessimist. All right. So we'll take a look at this document, and we'll just do alert here. Window dot alert got HTML to process. Okay. So we'll put a BR, to break the line. So if we have any additional, no, this is alert. So it's only displayed as a box. Okay, so we don't need a BR. It's not a, it's not an output, and we don't need to write this because document write HTML to process will basically just crank out that code, on the screen. So we'll just say that we're not gonna do this. Let's comment this out for now. And that's it. We just want to get it like that. And we also want to make another alert that we made it inside the callback. So we have another window dot alert, and say, in get ingredients, and turn off spelling because it's highlighting everything that doesn't match anything in the dictionary. There we go. So we'll take a look at this one. Okay, so we'll go back to the app and re-upload it to. Oh, you got one here and you got the other one in the other screen. Okay, that's fine. And then we upload the file again. It's called process dom.html. And open. Yep, we are overwriting. And then we can now rebuild the APK. So I know it sounds like this process is taking a little bit more time, but I think it's worth the time, especially when you have a multi-screen application. The one thing that is kind of important about doing it this way is if you have a multi-screen application and you have code attached to the initialization of a screen, that doesn't get triggered when you switch the screen in App Inventor and your AI companion is doing the same thing with the app being tested. So you cannot really test anything that involves the initialization part of a screen. But doing it this way, your APK is really what you would be distributing, if it were on the Play Store. So your app is now behaving exactly the way it would be after deployment. And I think that that's a better way to debug your app. It's just that you have to kind of get used to these steps. And for those people who are using Windows, I can probably record another one, for how to do the same thing in Windows, which I usually do not do. But that's an interesting one. I really have no experience using a Mac at all. All right, so the first alert is here. Okay, get HTML to process, and we are in get ingredients. So yes, so the HTML file did get loaded. We specify the path to the path to the HTML document correctly. So it got to it. It's just that the processing itself, did not yield what we wanted, and I think that has to do with it does not have it does not use a parser to break the HTML document down to its elements. So is that kind of okay for now?
I think I get what's happening. Yeah.
Okay. So to help find out exactly how to get to the document or get to the part that we want, we can open the document in a normal browser like this one. Okay. And then we can right click and then, okay, you guys cannot see what I'm right clicking on. Let me see if I can right click. Nope.
Yeah, when I was first writing the JavaScript in console, I was just going through and deleting all the ads, deleting all the. So I just had the recipe on the screen because I just couldn't take it anymore. You can do that, right, with Inspect. You can delete sections.
Mm-hmm. Or you can install a ad blocker. Yep.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. There are tons of ad blocks that you can install. It's like if you just look up ad block, ad blocker, or ad block plus, that's one that I use. If you want one that is free and you can trust, it's called Badger extension for Chrome. Okay, let me. Yeah, Privacy Badger. There we go. So you can install this one. This one is published by EFF, which stands for Electronic Frontier Foundation. That's an advocate group for for consumer rights and other things. So it's actually it's you can trust the organization. It's just a matter of whether the tool is works as good as the other tools. So let's refresh this, and the ad is gone. Any complaints? What is a complaint? Cookies and header.
This is on every site now.
Okay, and I cannot say no. It only has accept. So can I? Okay, can I close this? Is there a little X button to close it? Nope. Nope. Okay, fine. Okay, so now what you want to do is to look up the recipe and say, okay, this is the section that I'm interested in. You can right click here and inspect only that portion. And that shows you where in the document it is located. And by looking at your document as a DOM, then you can traverse the document kind of in this particular manner, or you know the class name of that thing, right? So you notice the class name is ingredient. If it has an ID, it would be even better. But if already has a class name that kind of uniquely identify what you want, because all of the other ingredients also have a class name of ingredient, then you can say, find get elements by class
The
ID,
first line
class
of
name.
mine has it so that it grabs that.
Mm-hmm.
It's I ended up using query selector all,
Yeah,
putting ingredients.
but that's using jQuery, right?
No,
No.
no, it's I didn't use any jQuery.
Yeah, but you have not parsed the document yet.
No, I'm saying like
Yeah,
I
once
was
you
just saying
parse it,
that.
then you can do it this way.
Yeah,
Yep.
but I did figure out how to find that
Mm-hmm.
without because without the ID, it would have been nice to have an ID, but because there's a lot of things called ingredient on there. But if
Yep.
you did ingredients child li, it gives you
Okay.
all the
Okay. Okay. So you can basically do all the processing once
once I get it, yeah.
yeah, once you break it down into the elements. Okay, that's cool. Okay. So the other thing your app actually has to do, which is a little bit more cumbersome, is to find the units.
Yep.
Yeah, the quantity and the units. And the ones that are kind of more difficult to deal with would be the quarter and a half, the fractional thing. You can probably use a regular expression parser to find those things and see if there's a fraction expressed. And if there is an expression if there's a fraction expressed, then you can just go ahead and convert it into decimal representation.
Well, yeah, and the only way if I'm in the middle of doing that, the way I was doing it was finding the index of the fraction and then
Mm-hmm.
grabbing -1 +1
Mm-hmm.
and dividing that
Yeah.
based on that.
And I would say doing that in JavaScript would make your life easier compared to doing it in App Inventor.
Yeah.
Because
Trying to have I was like, I can't do
you
it.
can, it's just super painful to do it that way. Because in JavaScript, it already has regular expression capabilities.
But the problem with that is once I get the like once we get this to work where it imports the recipe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like to do the conversion, we talked about this, right? We have to figure out a way where it can keep going to the JavaScript, right? Keep running it like you know what I mean? It's not just loading once and then be done with it because you don't set the serving size until you're in the app. So
Mm-hmm.
right, you would say okay, this is 4 servings, 12 servings it says right there, right? So I grab that number, and then in the app I go, I only want 4 people.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'd figure out how to send it to JavaScript to run it and then bring it back again, right?
There might be a different way to do it. So you can basically parse this once. And what you extract out of this, when you do come back with a JSON, so the JSON would be a list of items, and each item, each, well, the JSON is a string, but the string is representing a structure. It's representing a list that can have other lists inside it, right? So what you do is you extract, what is the quantity and what is the unit for each item here, and all of that is reported back to your App Inventor code. So the scaling can now be done using App Inventor because you're just multiplying each one of these by a particular scaling factor.
Yeah.
So you can now say, okay, how many is this? This is going to serve like 12 people. So you have to find the yield, element here to find out.
And I did it by setting a global multiplier.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So if it's 12, then we put 4.
Right.
It would be whatever 4.
Yeah, but I think just for the purpose of this class, just leave it as a decimal number.
Okay.
So
that does make it easier then if I can do that. Because I can do that. I think I've already got it, so it brings in the decimal, but then it's like 0.25 cups of cornstarch.
just leave it as a fraction. Leave it as a decimal. Because if you have the time, then we can make the decimal number look nice as a fraction.
Okay.
Yep, but
Let's get the thing in the page first.
yeah. I think if you just get all of this stuff in, being able to parse this, bring it into, App Inventor, that's already a good landmark.
Okay.
Yep,
So close. We're almost there.
almost there. Yeah. All right. So I hope this is not.
We haven't done it. No, we gotta do it. We haven't finished it.
Do what?
We have to get the code in there.
The ingredients?
Right? Can you bring up the code?
You mean
The DOM. Yeah. So var power DOM. Like
this is mine?
Yeah, we haven't actually done it though yet, right?
Yeah. So
Then you're gonna put that in mine. Put it in mine.
so change this to ingredients. Ingredient, not plural, because that's the class name of the individual ingredient, objects. So now this code would get all of the ingredient text representation, put it into a list, and return it as a JSON representation back into App Inventor. So now App Inventor, now you don't want to just do this, right? Because you also want to process what is the quantity and what is the unit.
So what I'm asking is, if we take these, can I just get up?
Yeah, go ahead.
So you still have mine open, right?
Yes, I do.
If we take these 2 lines, right?
Mhm.
I think these 2 lines, and add them to the top of mine, it should pull the ingredients perfectly, right? That's what I'm wondering. If that's all I'm missing.
Okay, so let's take a look at yours.
These 2 lines, the var parser, var dom, I think are the ones that I need.
Okay, that's because I already opened it in a separate window. Let me close this one, and then get back to this one. We want to edit anyway. There we go. Okay, so this is your code.
So, like, if we put those 2 lines there.
Let me do this. Let me do this.
Look at that fancy shit. Oh, it's yours and mine is side by side, is that what it is?
Yep.
Oh, they're the same. Oh, there you go.
So what you need to do. Okay, the top is yours. The bottom is mine. No, the other way around. The bottom is yours, and the top is mine. So what you need to do is inside.
No, bottom's yours, top is mine.
Okay, right. What I said. What you said.
We get it.
Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we got 6 lines. Put it up here. Yep. And after all that yanking, stash it here. Huh?
I guess it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. You're just creating some empty arrays. Right. So we have the DOM, and now it's just a matter of processing the DOM.
Take out the teacher's names, right?
Yep. And then you can now do the processing. I mean,
So that's what I'm wondering. So this should work, right? It should pull up a list of ingredients.
yes. So do you want to do that?
Yeah.
All right.
Wait, can you scroll down to the bottom of mine? Is this code that I wrote actually does more than one thing? I just want to see which one is okay.
Well, you're doing a lot more than all that stuff. So
Just go down all the way. I just want to see if it's keep going. I just want to see what the return value is.
you're returning ingredient array.
Okay, so that should be everything.
You have the JSON encoded too, because ingredient array is not a string. Did you parse it as a string, or is it an actual array in JavaScript?
It's an actual array.
Yeah, so you
I
have
need
to.
stringify it.
Yeah, you have to use json.stringify.
I forgot about that. That would happen right
Yeah, so what you do is you just whatever you try to return, just do a JSON dot stringify.
Oh, you can just do it in there.
Yeah,
That's nice.
yeah, it's just inline everything.
Okay, so now it should work, right?
I don't know. I haven't really checked out the
Well,
rest of
I
the
know.
code.
No, no. What, let's try. Can we try? Do you mind? Can we try? Can we run it now that you completed it?
I don't
I know my JavaScript works.
I don't know what your JavaScript is doing.
It's gonna.
So
What it will do is, I'll tell you. What? That's why I wanted you to scroll down. So it'll
oh,
with
you
that
mean
return, it'll
okay.
grab all the ingredients list. It'll
Mhm.
cut off the quantities, and
Mhm.
it'll put the ingredients in an array.
Okay.
And I guess then we'll stringify it. So it'll be
Okay,
like
but we have to
three.
associate. But we have to associate your items to DOM, right? Because right now we just have DOM, okay? But your items has nothing to do with DOM. So we have to get your DOM. We have to get the same thing. We have like what we got the teachers into the array teachers. We have to get all the recipe items into your array items first. So that means we need to switch back to my document, and then we need this to process the to make the items array for you. So this is not going to be a teacher's object. It's going to be, oh, okay, that's not it, because I have to yank multiple lines, not just one. So there are 4 lines to yank here. There we go. So now you have ingredients object is this whole thing, and then for each item, let me see, is that what we did? I thought we had to, no, this didn't work. That was one extra thing that we need to do, because get elements by class name is returning an object and not an array, and then we had to do a from array from to turn it into an array, and then we could do the processing.
Vaguely remember something like that. Yeah. Right.
So that means we have to do an array and then dot from this whole thing. And then, okay, I know. I remember now. I remember now. We add a thing here. So this gives us an array. And once we have an array, we can do a for each. And of course, we don't have teacher names, and instead we have items. Like so. So then item becomes an array, and then you can now treat it as an array. So I think this works, because dom dot get elements by class name is returning not an array, but something that looks like an array, but you cannot use for each with that thing. And then array dot from is converting something like that into an actual array. So this entire thing is now an array, which means I can now apply the for each. Inside the for each, I just look at the inner text of each recipe ingredient, and then push that into your array of items to create the array items.
Item's not an array in my thing. Ingredient array is the name of the array.
Then what is items? You're treating items as an array. I mean, this is
No, that is grabbing. That it's not. I mean, it's grabbing. It's just grabbing one item, and then if you go down, it takes that one item, then puts that in an array. So
okay.
this is going like one by one in a loop.
I know, but you're using items as an array, because otherwise it won't have a length.
Oh, items. Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes. Sorry.
but each
I was
one,
thinking items.
Yeah, but
Right.
each one is an object, and each one has its own inner text. So I want to push the object itself and not just push the inner text because you are extracting the inner text in your code.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to keep this.
And we don't need ingredients object anymore because that's actually not useful to me because I just need to um, do all the inline processing, create the array, so that object is not useful. Okay, cool. And just for
He's doing all this stuff into items, so he doesn't actually need to hold it
Oh, okay.
into something else.
and we'll just do this here. I know it's gonna look, it's gonna pop up things like all the time, but it's for debugging. So we'll keep it like that, and then switch back to App Inventor, and then re-upload the document.
I'm excited.
This is fun, isn't it?
Although we did by elements by class name, so it might pull a bunch of stuff instead of ingredients.
I'm pretty sure it will pull just mostly the ingredient items. Yeah,
Who's
so
excited? Am I the only one excited here?
Oh, it's interesting. I'm definitely excited.
Nice. You know, you ever played Pathfinder?
No, I have not,
Because
but
that's
we're thinking about getting another.
because that's all open source.
Yeah.
So you could do tons of cool stuff like app wise probably.
Like on the
Which is cool all this
previous,
stuff.
what, 3.7?
Yeah.
So I have no idea how that works.
what?
It's different versions of D&D.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, D&D stuff.
We're nerd talking.
Now with the online D&Ds, do you still have a human dungeon master?
Never played online
So
D&D.
you're talking about like the D&D and Beyond?
Yeah.
Yes, I believe.
So there's
I've
a
heard
human
about
dungeon
this.
master.
I've heard
Okay.
that there's like ways I can create a character that is like recognized so that I can pop into recognized games. I don't. Do you know how to do that?
Yeah, it's on D&D Beyond.
You need to show me that before I leave Pittsburgh.
And then it'll take.
Because I can't buy enough of these bugger like.
The only problem with D&D Beyond, if you already have the books, you still have to rebuy them on the Beyond to be
Oh,
able to
just like
utilize all
Magic
the
the
stuff.
Gathering back
Yeah.
in the day.
Yeah.
You had to buy all the cards again.
Yeah. So it's pretty much because it's the same people that run it. So
Yeah.
All right, moment of truth. Okay, what do I do now?
Hit go.
I
It's
didn't
not
need to
attached
hit
to
go
anything.
last time.
I don't think. Yeah. I don't think right now it's not attached to anything, right? I just realized that, right? I mean, that's why
Oh, did I upload the code?
you uploaded the code. Theoretically, it processed, but we're expecting it to show in the web viewer.
Did we make a mistake somewhere? Because that's going to be the problem, right? I mean, if it has any type of syntax error, it's not going to work.
Is that what we expect though, for it to be in the web viewer?
Yes.
Show it in the web viewer, right?
Yeah, it did last time. Remember, as soon as we got to the second screen, all the alerts happen,
Yeah.
and then
Nothing happened.
this time none of the alerts happen, which means there's a syntax error somewhere, and it's causing issues. So, well, what we can do is to run your script using Node, and then because at least it will find all the syntax
Now,
errors.
I have a question. You just deleted the object, like you said for array, you just need to run it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not setting it as an object or a variable, are you're using variables that haven't been defined yet, right?
Okay,
Like
how
you have
about this?
DOM in there, right? But it came after. You wrote it before DOM, I think.
Yeah, but we need a better way to debug that, right? So we need to just do this and look into inspect and look into console.
Okay, that's a good idea.
So
Aha.
so it has got errors. So we have an error on line 28.
It's just missing a parentheses. It looks like.
Yeah.
Really nothing.
Okay, so we'll fix that. Okay, so this is line 28. We are missing a close.
for the for each.
Yep, for the for each. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so this is the kind of complexity that we can get into, when you're Oops, not that.
I was thinking about using this to grab a description of each class in a moved race and throw that on the screen for you. That way if you select one race, you go, oh, here's the description of it.
Yeah. So cisp projects.
And by the way, App Inventor is considered not secure, because all the communication between this client and the remote server is done by regular HTTP and not HTTPS. Um, so nothing is encrypted. If you have any type of secret included in your app, like passwords and credit card numbers and whatnot, they will be transmitted in plain text.
That's scary.
Social security numbers.
Yep, exactly. So if you're writing a tax return app or something like that, you'll just keep it in mind.
You'll be on a lot of people's favorite lists.
Okay,
I'm
so
not talking about the victims.
yep, see, we got it again, process, blah, blah. Okay, so we got everything here. So what do I do next? It supposedly has everything processed
I hadn't gotten this far, so I don't have anything. That's
to
what I'm saying.
to read the list. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can use a last alert to kind of check what it's returning.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
just to see that, and then after that I'd be good, 'cause like it's I haven't been able to get this far, so I haven't actually set it to show anything.
Yep.
Because basically, with that with the list, you can only give it a string or elements, right? Which is another string, right? Like so, you'd have to pass it a bunch of comma separated values
Well, we can
to
we
make this
can
to make the list in right in what's it called? It's spelled ingredient wrong.
okay, and then yeah. So the other editor inside Android Studio will spoil you because you can just type part of a name and then tab it to autocomplete. And you will never make spelling
Most of the
mistakes.
time, sometimes I really hate that though. I'm like, I don't want
Okay,
that one.
ingredient array. I think that is
Yeah, it's what it is.
correct. Yes. Yep. Um, although you have an ingredient only array.
Yeah, I was messing about on what to because ingredient array will bring. They're both would work. It doesn't matter. It's just
Okay.
for demonstration. One is going to give you with the
And then
measurements,
return
the
value.
thing one won't.
Okay, so we got return value, return value. So what we're missing is just an alert.
Yeah, the way I wrote it was like I can return whatever I want. Quantities.
Okay, something is not right because the syntax highlighting is not highlighting that. Just kind of odd.
Not highlighting what?
Well, window is usually highlighted when you look into. Oh, it's not. Okay, never mind. Okay, I thought it was usually highlighted. It's not. Okay,
Pretty sure it was in the very top of it.
No, it is right there. Window.alert. But in the function, it's not.
but somewhere it stopped highlighting window. I wonder why. Because this is kind of indicative
Now
of.
it's highlighted.
No, okay. Well,
It
it's
just wasn't highlighted for a second.
the editor was probably a little buggy. Yeah.
You keep using these stuff.
I know, right? Oh, I'm excited. I'm gonna be on a red eye plane and I'm supposed to be sleeping. My bet is I'm gonna be coding. You don't need the internet, which is cool.
Then you don't have red eye. You have redder eye.
Right. Well, I made it so I have nothing planned when I land on Thursday in case shit.
Red eye is okay as long as it's not pink.
Spoken from a person that has kids.
As long as it's not pink, you're good.
I return with a pink eye.
Yeah, red eye flights are okay, if you're doing it yourself, but if you bring kids and family, not a good idea because you end up with very grumpy kids and you'll be tired at the same time.
See, we had so many kids, we just drove cross country.
That's basically what happened. We just blew past, customs. You know, um, it happens a few times. There was one time we went to Cow Expo, for some kind of event, and there's a person, up front, and they search you, right, for
Yeah.
knives, guns, and whatnot.
Crazy over there.
Yeah, so I was with my kids, and they were, having a fit of some kind, fighting, between my two kids, and then I go like, okay, here's my bag, and here's the kid's bag and whatnot, and the guys just go like, okay, okay, you're done, move on. And then I realized later on, after I got into the park, that I had at least two or three knives, in various forms, in my fanny pack that I forgot to take out because,
2 or 3?
yes, I mean they were not like assault knives, that kind of thing. One is a multi-tool, and one was a like a box cutter kind of thing, and then the other one was just a regular Swiss Army knife. So none of those were like the dangerous kinds that people like flip out and do a knife fight. I mean, come on, a multi-tool knife. By the time I flip that knife out, everything is done already. It's over. It's like, okay, how do I open this again? Take this thing out, fold this, and then fold that out, and then fold it back in, and then fold this back in. Okay, now I have a knife. What was I supposed to do with this again? Oh, it's over.
So do they consider having a nail file clipper a weapon?
On the airplane, yes, but I'm not sure about Cow Expo.
Wow. Here I used to carry them for trimming the nails.
Now, what if you
Weapon.
remove the file off?
Huh?
What if you remove the file off and just have a nail in it or something? It's not like you can pinch the
Well,
whole
it
thing.
gave me an empty list. Gave me an empty list, so it didn't work.
They gave an empty list?
Yeah, it looks that way. Okay, let's watch it again, right? So this is the first alert, second after parsing, and then we got the ingredients here. And this is the last message. That's a open and close square bracket right next to each other.
List, yeah.
So we got an empty list. But that's your code, and I'll leave it up to you.
Hey, it works when if you throw that code into the thing, it works fine.
Well, I think if you want to really,
If you copy that, just get ingredients into the macaroni and cheese page, it'll give you what you want.
yeah. So items is actually pushed here. So maybe it didn't get all
So
the
I
items
don't use
here.
get elements by class name. That's maybe part of it. I don't know, but I
Well,
use
we
like
can
I
throw
said,
in more
I
alert.
have it working with
Oh, inner
I have
text.
it with
Okay.
query selector all, and then dot ingredients greater than li, and that's how
Hmm.
it grabs what I want.
Oh, I know why. It's okay. This is super stupid because you have HTML to process. Oh, okay. It is still using HTML to process. Never mind. We got parser, and then. Okay, so this will tell us, whether it's pushing anything into the array, but apparently it's not pushing anything into the
I
array.
mean, would it? Yeah, can we just alert this array to see what this is when it's done? But it doesn't have a name.
It does. Items, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, okay.
And the way you initialize item, wait, what are you doing here? So we don't want that, right? We just want it to be an array.
Okay, yeah. So the way I wrote it was, it grabs one item, and then it takes the one item because the item has the quantity and the measure and everything. It has that one line. I mean, you don't have to go over it now. It's fine. We can just.
No, let's try. I want to see this work.
All right.
Okay, so the class name is ingredient. I think we saw that, right? The class name
Class
of
name is
ingredient.
ingredient. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it should find a
But
whole
to be
bunch of stuff
honest,
there.
there are other things on the page called ingredients. So maybe it's grabbing something else.
But then the array should not be empty. I mean, the point
That's
is,
true. That's
why
true.
is it empty?
Ingredient.
Yep. So this is, kind of, so this is the process of doing this is kind of cumbersome because, every time you update the HTML, you have to re-upload it, and I mean,
Well,
it's,
can't you just throw this in the console and then see if it works?
but the console doesn't have, um,
It will show you that window.alert would alert something, no?
yeah, but it doesn't know which page. So you would need some extra code because if the
No, I mean go to the actual page.
go to the actual
Actual
page.
macaroni and cheese page, go
Uh
to
huh.
console and then throw it in there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that will work.
Just to see if it works. You don't have to keep uploading it and whatever.
Right. So go to
Try to tell it.
console.
Yeah. And if you just type in, copy and paste that whole code in there and then run get ingredients, it'll ignore the body unload part, but you can just manually run it.
So I will need all this stuff.
You can just take everything, huh? I mean, it doesn't really matter.
Um,
The top two.
yeah, because I need items. And
No,
no, that would do
okay.
it.
Yeah, that would. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, copy and then paste. Okay, cool. And it caught an
Oh,
error. HTML to process is not defined.
that's above. That was above what you copied. If you scroll up, it's above. It's up there. Yeah.
Yeah, but then we have to.
Yeah, it's not gonna work because that's app
Yeah.
events, or yes, so this won't work.
Yep.
Damn it. Let's try it.
You already downloaded it.
Yeah, let's try it again. You already downloaded it. I think you already created the APK, right?
Did I?
No,
No.
you haven't.
Not this time.
I don't remember.
Did I upload it?
You did upload it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Because if you guys didn't track, I have to kind of watch my own video from YouTube to find out. I've done that in the past. You can actually do that.
I've done it before. Watch your videos? Yes.
No, while recording a video, you go back and watch the earlier part of the video. That was one time. I think one of my students, was asking me, "So what did you just say?" And go like, "I have no idea what I just said, but it's streamed to YouTube, so let me go to YouTube and find out, right?" And that worked. It was
So what other classes do you have show up on YouTube?
all the classes that I teach. So
Yeah.
for this
They annoy
semester,
me. They get in my way of my feed.
Okay, so this semester you have this class and what's the other one?
CISP 440, which is discrete math or discrete structure, and then CISP 310, which is assembly language programming.
Oh, wow.
Okay, parsing. Okay, so it's an object. Okay, in there. Okay, it's empty, and it's empty. So we didn't quite get the ingredients.
Yeah. All right, we can look at it in the lab.
Yep. But I think this is good progress. I mean, we have connectivity to the document. Now it's a matter of, just parsing it.
Next is what you want.
Yep. Are we good?
Yeah.
All
We're
right.
gonna go to the lab, right?
Oh yeah, we're gonna head out to the
Can I
lab.
go change first?
Yeah.
Get out of my tennis
And
outfit.
let me. Did you actually play tennis?